Hello everyone. In today's episode, we will make a big leap forward. We have been dependent on foreign steel imports for a long time, and it's about time we did something about it. During my test plays for this episode, I discovered that we had a pair of iron and coal deposits right next to the farms. So far I've only looked for separate ore veins, but never together. And I was pleasantly surprised that we had a convenient place to start up our steel industry. Let's not waste any more time. The sooner we get this done, the sooner we can eliminate the most expensive part of our imports. Unfortunately, a couple of these farm fields are occupying the site of our future steel production chain, so we will have to move them. During my test runs, I discovered that I will sadly need to build a construction office to take advantage of this area. The coal deposits are just barely out of range for our earthwork vehicles. This is strictly temporary, so I'll only build the smallest CO, and will demolish it fairly soon after it is no longer necessary. It is in fact so temporary, that I won't even bother building a gravel driveway for it. Next, it is essential that we disallow people to walk from the border bus stop to the rail construction office. It will only siphon the workforce away from the essential buildings, like the heating plant and the fire station. I'll just tell people to only work at the original 4 buildings, and I'll establish a separate commuter line for the rail CO. And we have quite a few new lines that are not yet named, so I'll just quickly go through them and make them easier to tell apart. While that construction office is building, I'll take care of this junction. In the last episode I did mention that it's not really the best layout. These 2 branches are too close to treat them separately, and too far apart to use them as a single junction effectively. So, I'll move them closer together, and we will be able to make the resulting block smaller, and thus, more efficient, since trains will spend less time inside. We will have to trim back the original road crossing to make the resulting twists and turns less narrow. Not the most optimal, but it's okay. Next up, I will pause construction on the sections of our rail network that are yet to be finalized. That includes pretty much everything, except for the 3-way junction, and the temporary turnaround for our track layers. I'll simply pause construction of the track segments next to them, and the builder locomotives will not progress any further. I will also finalize the U-turn. Originally I built it out of the most expensive track type, but we only really need the cheapest one. Only the track layers will use it, and they are diesel powered, and slow. So no need to electrify them, or use the concrete foundation. Plus, I'll make it double tracked. I'm not sure it's strictly necessary, but I'll sleep better if I take some precautions. I forgot to measure out the 150 meters for this station. So I'll quickly do that, and then trim back the junction, so the full length of a normal train can fit. This might not be enough, if we consider the room taken up by the signals. I guess we'll see. The temporary CO is almost finished. I'll just designate a couple more road segments to upgrade in the town, and we'll start planning the layout for the steel industry. To avoid people getting cut off, I'll add these dirt footpaths back in for the time being. I'll buy one more of the cheaper track layers. The bus ferrying workers have a capacity of 40, which is what we get with 2 of these trains. I'll just keep an eye on our budget. So, let's begin. I will build the steel industry from the top down, starting with a steel mill. I'll add 2 aggregate storages for the raw resources, receiving their input straight from the processing plants, and feeding directly into the steel mill. I'll just have to use the mirror function by pressing T, and all the necessary connections will face the right way. I cannot stress it enough how much the game was improved by this feature. Tremendous amount of kudos goes to 3 Division for it. Unfortunately, another farm field need to be moved. We need some room for a couple extra pieces of infrastructure. And it's almost sowing season, so we should really put those fields back in so they are ready when the time comes. Two can go here. This is a perfect place for the third one. And I guess the last one will feel at home right here in the corner. The cutoff is a bit closer to the tracks than I'd like, but they are not finalized, so it's no big deal. I'll just quickly go through the lists, making sure everything is assigned where necessary. And that's the fields taken care of. Back to the steel industry. The game glitched out here for a second. I thought the game crashed, but it was just a momentary freeze. Anyways, next, I'll buy a pair of excavators and bulldozers. They will be sold soon, they are only necessary to build the coal mine. I'll start with the iron mine though. It's closer to the current construction offices, so we can use them to adjust the terrain. The new vehicles will try to pitch in, realize they have no fuel, and will go to remedy the situation. By the time we get around to dealing with the coal mine, they'll be back in action. Anyways, we only have to level the terrain enough to get a yellow ghost image when trying to place down the mine. Using that, to level out the rest, will allow us to create slopes much steeper than we could ever achieve with the terrain tools at our disposal. You'll see the end result. The difference is enormous. Not quite there yet. And we have a winner. We only need to get it started, and we'll have a neat little shelf to place our new mine onto. You can already see the huge contrast between what we managed to do with the terrain tools, and what we can do with this kind of leveling. The resulting slope is almost vertical. Anyways, I'll try to make the site a bit bigger than the actual footprint of the mine. I will need a bit of room for the road connection, and it's almost impossible to bring it down the hillside if there isn't enough space for a turn. That's a pretty big drop right there. Remember the hill we tried to make for the bridge earlier? Yeah. If you need to create this kind of steep slope, try to use a building as a leveling tool. Anyways, we can add the iron processing plant. It will turn iron ore into raw iron, which can be turned into steel at the steel mill. By the way, we are definitely not going to build everything all at once. That would be financial suicide. I'll first build the overall infrastructure surrounding the buildings, and then we can start with the actual production facilities. Next up, the coal mine. It's much closer than the one I tried to build a couple episodes back. The mine will have to be placed on this hillside, so it's a bit trickier than the first attempt, but we can then deal with the distribution with a single conveyor belt. Much more convenient. Anyway, it's basically the same as the iron mine. First we use the leveling tool until we get the yellow ghost image, and we can use that to finish up the groundwork. I'll just mirror the building, so the conveyor connection faces the valley, and the road is parallel to the hillside, so it will be easier to bring it down to the rest of the complex. There we go. Now we just need the coal processing plant, and the main buildings are in their final place. I'll just be careful to put it down once both conveyor connections are available. Next, we will need a bus stop, so we can drop off workers in a central location. The mines will need separate bus lines, but the central facilities can be served by a single drop-off point. Now, in order to use this location for it, we will need a tiny bit of rearrangement. I'll fast forward through it. I spent way more time on it than I really needed to. There. Using the two outer conveyor connections instead of the inner ones gave us enough room for the bus stop. All good. I can already tell that the roads I'm laying down now will not be long enough for our workers to walk from the bus stop to the processing facilities. I will attempt to use footpaths, and while it would do the job admirably, I know I can do it only using roads. For now I'll just go with this, but in the next episode I'll deal with it. Sure, all these 90-degree angles look nice and orderly, but there really is no reason for it here. In the town it was a convenient way to organize things, but in this case we already have everything we'll ever need. Now, this part was a bit tricky. I could have just curved the road to avoid the support pillars of the conveyor belt, but my slight perfectionist tendencies wouldn't allow me to do such a lazy workaround, resulting in an ugly road layout. That was easier than expected. For now I'll place down a gravel footpath to connect up to the iron processing plant, but as I said, we'll try to make it a road-only solution in the next episode. This road kind of stands out with its constant curve, but it works well, so I'm okay with it. We will need to tinker with it a little when trying to place the rail connection for the steel mill, but the general path down the hill will stay the same. Giving these cliffs a touch-up with the smoothing tool will blunt those sharp edges a little bit. I'll just need to remember to replant the trees when I can. Now we need to somehow bring down this road to the rest of our network. There we go. Easy as pie. I'll go over the pause construction tool to stop building the main facilities, and only allow the supporting infrastructure. Next up, electricity. We will need a switch, because the steel mill requires a direct high voltage connection. I'll be honest. I have absolutely zero idea what wattage it will require when going full tilt. I'll just have to keep an eye on the power overlays, and see if the power line turns red at any time. Power will come in from the right, then one goes up to the steel mill, and the third one will connect up to a transformer that will power the rest of the industrial park. 2 substations should be plenty. I will definitely have to rethink this piece of dirt road. I think I will try to move it down between the steel mill and coal processing in the next episode, because it's ugly and, as you'll soon see, more trouble than it's worth. It has to be in that general area, because that's the place where it just barely provides the coal mine with power. A little bit more down, and it's no longer covered. And that should take care of our power needs here. Well, we need to bring a high voltage cable from the power plant, but local distribution is taken care of. At this point, the temporary construction office outlived its usefulness. We can safely sell the vehicles and demolish the building. Once we have homemade steel, we can upgrade from these cheap track layers and start using the beefy alternatives. That will speed things up considerably. I just remember that we still have the old coal mine on the other side of the mountain. I'm really glad we didn't waste any resources on it, so I can remove it without any remorse. The steel mill have a very convenient rail connection. If we can go over this road without issues, we can have trains park in the mill itself, waiting to be loaded up. Of course, we run into problems. That dirt road connection is too close and it interferes with the rail crossing. Still no dice. We will have to trim things back, place the tracks first, and then place the road after. Doing a bit of terrain work will seem like a good idea at first. Now the road won't cross over the rails. Obviously. If you know me, you could tell I'm not happy with that. And we reached the limit of our still active construction offices. At this point I was afraid I deleted the temporary one a bit too early. But it will work out. That's one ugly bump right there. A bit more terrain alteration, and we will have a solution eventually. Let's try that again, and suddenly, it fails to connect up. I guess we'll do it in segments then, and that way we manage to do it. I guess if parts of the road are in range, the construction office is willing to level out the entire road. Not the best, but I'm willing to go with it at this point. The most important goal, namely giving the rail connection a way out, has been achieved. The overall aesthetic of the road is still largely the same, so it could have been much worse. Instead of waiting for the roads to be built, I'll just connect up this transformer on the other side with a dirt path, so it can be built quickly. We can also use the power plant's second high voltage connection to power the steel mill and its support facilities. At first I wanted to use a switch at the border outpost and use the main power lines, but then I would have needed to cut power to the rest of the network. And we learned that the concrete and asphalt plants don't work without power. Again, I have no idea how much of a drain the steel mill's going to be once doing 100% production. We can upgrade the lines when necessary. I'll also unpause the conveyor belts here. I doubt we will have to move anything else from now on. The queue in front of the oil storage tank is now spilling over onto the main thoroughfare. Selling 2 of them seems sensible. I'll just make sure to only sell the trucks that are empty. Unemployment still rarely goes above 0%, so I'll unpause one of the prefab blocks in this housing complex. We will only manage to build the surrounding infrastructure in this episode. I think first I will only build the steel mill itself, and once that's up and running, we will import the iron and coal until the rest of the buildings are completed. We will save a lot of money with this, and should make building the rest up much cheaper. To speed things up a bit, I'll fill the remaining vehicle slot in the border construction office with a covered hull truck. Since we are now in the middle of upgrading to asphalt roads, I think it's time to move past the old Skoda trucks, and start using something else. These guys are way slower than I anticipated. Can't wait to start up our steel production, so we can safely replace these with a better model. Groundworks on the steel mill's power poles are underway. And the new industrial park has power. Hopefully we can take advantage of it in the next episode. Let's see if we can connect up the steel mill to the rest of the rail network. Looking at the footage, I think I will move this section to the other side of the road in the next episode. Instead of crossing the road twice, I think it would make more sense to stay on one side, make the junction there, and then cross the road after. The resulting turns on the tracks should be gentler as well. Here, I was just trying to see if separating the two tracks would make sense, trying to avoid the power poles, but then we would have two level crossing right next to each other. Not ideal. Unfortunately, I forgot to finalize the part that goes under the conveyor belt. I'll have to redraw it again. So, yes. I will move this whole section to the other side of the road in the next episode. There is no point in crossing a busy road such as this twice. We'll have a second crossing on the Iron Mines access road, but that's fine, only a couple buses will ever use it anyway. A couple people suggested that I should build an aggregate truck loading station for gravel. Love the idea, but the placement of the connection points are completely prohibitive around the border. I might get away with it in the first industrial district, if I move the fire station, but the border outpost is beyond helping at this point. I will definitely have to build a better thought through construction zone. I'm mostly concerned with moving a lot of gravel, and it would be nice to have the asphalt and concrete facilities hooked straight up to the aggregate storage too. Once we have an oil refinery, and a stable bitumen production, we'll be in a better position to rethink the whole thing. There was very little I could do at this point, so I just went around, adding a couple more roads section to the queue to be paved, and added a few little details to the town, like an asphalt pavement over the kindergarten playground, and the gravel around 2 apartment block entrances that I only notice now. We are very close to the end of the episode, so before we say goodbye, let's fill in the internal park area of the housing complex. First, a statue in the middle will help boost loyalty in our newest citizens. We've been expanding the housing in the country quite significantly in the last couple episodes, and that will make a huge impact on the overall loyalty. And of course, no park is complete without some trees and bushes. While editing this part, I realized that the new playground assets we used at the kindergartens can also be placed here. These areas enclosed by apartment blocks usually have at least one small playground in real life, so no reason why we cannot do the same. We are very close to starting construction on the bridges. Exciting times. It seems the old coal mines area name tag is affecting the steel mill. I'll designate a new area for it so we can get rid of the old one. I think I'll name it Ferrograd. Ferro, as in ferrum, the Latin name for iron. I neglected to add trees around the recently moved farm fields, so I'll remedy that here. And we just barely finished laying the tracks before starting construction on the bridges. I hate to leave it off here, but my recording is past the hour mark at this point, so I'll leave the overpass construction to the next episode. In episode 12, I think I will fine-tune the roads around the steel mill, which I will start building by the way, and use it to cut back on the price of steel a bit. Once the mines and the processing plants are up and running, steel will become basically free. We also in desperate need of a secret police headquarters. All these people we gave houses for are in desperate need of some re-education, and if we know who is loyal enough, we can start limiting the relevant jobs to the most patriotic workers, like teachers and radio moderators. Anyways, I hope you liked the video. If you did, dropping a like and subscribing to the channel just might motivate me to make more. Until then, see you later.